Wow, it's like Middle-earth is real. Can you believe it's been a whole 10 years since we were graced with The Hobbit on the big screen? Then again, the Hobbit novel celebrated its 85th anniversary this year. J.R.R. Tolkien himself would have celebrated his 130th birthday. What a wonderful way we've been celebrating it. Anyways, this past decade has given us enough time to think about the Hobbit movies and let's say their quirks. I felt it was a fitting time to reevaluate the films one by one to see if they've improved over the years. First off, let's talk about the studios. The Lord of the Rings trilogy had one studio backing the film, New Line Cinema, and thankfully they stayed out of the creative process and gave Peter Jackson carte blanche to do whatever he wanted. Here, Jackson wasn't so lucky. This trilogy was overseen by New Line Cinema, Warner Brothers, MGM, Saul Zaentz, and Harvey Weinstein. It's really a case of too many cooks spoiling the broth, as we'll see later in the films. It opens with Bilbo Baggins writing down the true story of what happened on his journey 60 years previously, including all the pointless filler. We are introduced to the city of Dale and the dwarven kingdom of Erebor, a glorious kingdom built by the best CG artists that Middle-earth could find. As the dwarves forge using impractical machinery, they dig into the earth and find the mythical Arkenstone, a priceless gem that in the book was little more than a family heirloom. However, they changed it to be this trilogy's version of the One Ring, despite the fact that the One Ring appears in this movie. Meanwhile, outside, we are introduced to our main threat. This introduction to Smaug is fantastic. For the tone that these films are going for, it shows the dragon as a serious threat. After we see the dwarves driven from their kingdom and wandering the lands, we return to the Shire, with Bilbo re-entering the story. And finally, after 11 minutes of the film, we actually start adapting the book, The Hobbit, verbatim. As Bilbo is reciting the opening passages of the book, we see Frodo. Frodo? I'm pretty sure he wasn't in the book. Oh wait, my bad. We seem to be adapting the first chapter of Lord of the Rings again, my bad.
You know, some people are beginning to wonder about you, Uncle. They think you're becoming odd.
Odd?
That's funny, I thought Bilbo was seen as odd as soon as he returned from his journey. But I digress. Frodo runs down to the East Farthing Woods to await Gandalf as Bilbo smokes his pipe and reminisces some more. We travel back 60 years to the start of Bilbo's journey, and Martin Freeman is playing young Bilbo Baggins. Good casting is good casting, and Martin Freeman is phenomenal as Bilbo Baggins. Speaking of phenomenal, this scene, just this scene alone.
Good morning.
What do you mean? Do you mean to wish me a good morning, or do you mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not? Or perhaps you mean to say that you feel good on this particular morning? Or are you simply stating that this is a morning to be good on?
All of them at once, I suppose.
It's perfect. When these movies cut the crap and adapt The Hobbit as it is, it's wonderful. So Gandalf requests that Bilbo accompany him on an adventure, but Bilbo, being a hobbit of course, takes exception to this and flees inside his house. Gandalf takes to graffitiing his front door, as Bilbo tries to watch.
Bilbo Baggins! I am not trying to rob you!
After this incident, Bilbo makes himself dinner as unwanted guests start arriving. Dwalin and Balin are the first to arrive. So they start raiding Bilbo's house like they're me when I play Oblivion. During this, another ring comes at the door.
Feely. And Keely.
No, you can't come in. You come to the wrong house.
Yeah, this Hobbit hole is for dwarves. The GQ photo shoot is down on Bagshot Row, guys. I think you want to check it out. But they don't listen, and Bilbo starts getting flustered.
If this is some lothead's idea of a joke, it is in very poor taste.
Who could be responsible for the torture of this poor hobbit? Oh wait, it's Gandalf. The dwarves continue their food theft, with the worst offender being Bomber.
Isn't it? You got a cheese knife?
Cheese knife. He eats it by the block.
Word of caution, Bilbo, if you have to use the bathroom, do it after him. Let's just say they call him Bomber for a reason. As they're all getting ready for the feast, Gandalf gives us a dwarf roll call. Feely, Keely, Oin, Gloin, Dwalin, Balin, Bifur, Bofer, Bomber, Dori, Nori, Ori. Gandalf himself gets in on the party, having a shot of wine. which is something I don't think anyone has actually ever done. Ah, f*** it, let's try it. I think I'm okay. So the dwarves start their feast, which makes me realize that this movie would actually be a pretty good Thanksgiving movie. They top it all off with lots of beer, just like my family during the holidays.
Did you hear that?
That looks real fun. I think I'm gonna try that. Aww. Here we are reintroduced to Thorin, played by Richard Armitage. Fun fact, when Guillermo del Toro was slated to direct this movie, Thorin would have been played by Brian Blessed. Now, I'm not trying to slight Armitage. He's an amazing actor. We all know that. I'm just lamenting the film that could have been.
Oh, well, who wants to live forever?
They start discussing their plans for retaking the Lonely Mountain from Smaug. Bilbo has been brought into the fold because Gandalf thinks he would make a great burglar. The dwarves are adamantly against this decision, quite humorously so is Bilbo.
Hobbits are remarkably light on their feet. In fact, they can pass unseen by most if they choose.
Plus, if you find a magic ring that turns you invisible, that would make this whole thing a cinch. They show Bilbo the contract he'll have to sign before going on the adventure.
Nobody shall not be liable for injuries inflicted by or sustained as a consequence thereof.
Floods, fire, frost, of frippery.
Accidents? What kind of accidents?
I didn't know we had to sign anything for this tour.
I can't see what it says in the bottom.
But Bilbo doesn't like the part about possibly dying on the journey and faints.
Nope.
Very helpful, both of them.
Gandalf tries to give him some words of encouragement.
Did you know that your great-great-great-great-uncle Bulrora Took was so large he could ride a real horse? In the Battle of Green Fields, he charged the goblin ranks. Hard, it knocked the goblin king's head clean off, and it sailed 100 yards through the air and went down a rabbit hole. And the game of golf invented at the same time.
Huh. I didn't know the Tooks were Scottish. Oh, never mind. Yes, I did. However, all of this is not enough to convince Bilbo of the journey. He declines and walks away. The dwarves try to lift their spirits by singing a song.
The winds were moaning in the night.
This scene is unironically one of the best in the movie. The way it portrays the dwarves as these people aching for their homeland. They don't have it yet, but through remembering their glory days, they still have hope. Bilbo wakes up to find that the dwarves have left. After a moment of reflection, he runs out to join them on their adventure. However, he quickly realizes what living out in the real world is actually like.
No, wait, stop! Stop! Forgot my handkerchief.
Here. Use this.
Oh lord, why does it smell like spoiled milk? Later that night, while resting, they hear a pack of orcs. Balin explains to Bilbo why Thorin hates orcs. In summary, during a fierce battle, a great enemy appeared to antagonize the forces of good. He kills the king, and in a fit of rage, the prince slices off the malevolent figure's appendage. The malevolent figure is presumed dead, and victory reigns for the good guys. Wait a minute, this all sounds familiar. By very familiar, of course, I mean it's almost exactly the same. After this, Gandalf discusses the other wizards of the land, including Radagast, who barely appears in the Lord of the Rings book and the book version of The Hobbit, so naturally, there should be a whole subplot dedicated to him. He investigates a sickness that is killing the forest. We reunite with the company after Gandalf suggests they keep a move on.
I think it would be wiser to move on. We could make for the Hidden Valley.
Ooh, I hear they have good ranch there. Thorin is disgusted at the thought because he hates elves. This angers Gandalf, who storms away.
Everything all right? Gandalf, where are you going?
Seek the company of the only one around here who's got any sense.
And who's that?
Myself, Mr. Baggins.
In the night, while the dwarves are camping, they notice some missing ponies. Bilbo follows the trail to find a small group of trolls. He tries to set the ponies free, but blows the operation.
Ah! Blimey! What's come out of me ooter?
After a scuffle, the dwarves get involved and are all captured. Bilbo tries to buy time until the sun comes up, which, in all honesty, makes for a pretty funny scene.
Nice and crunchy. No, not that one. He's infected.
You what?
Yeah, he's got worms in his tubes. In fact, they all have.
I've got parasites as big as my arm.
One of the biggest parasites. I've got huge parasites.
Gandalf returns and the morning light turns all the trolls to stone. Scenes like this perfectly illustrate that when the movie returns to being lighthearted, like the book was, it can be a fun time. The only problem is scenes like this are few and far between. After they kill the trolls, they do what any person who's played Elder Scrolls does after beating a boss.
Well, let's get looting.
They find a cave full of elvish blades and Gandalf comes across Sting. No, not that one. He gives both the blade and a very good piece of advice to Bilbo.
True courage is about knowing not when to take a life, but when to spare one.
However, it looks like trouble is brewing as the dwarves arm themselves against... Oh, it's just Radagast again. Great. Radagast tells of a necromancer who has taken over an ancient abandoned fortress. But there's no time to sit and ponder as the company is flanked by orcs and wargs. The company escapes through a cave and manages to make it to Rivendell. Rivendell, of course, is just as beautiful as it ever was. If only it were real and not digital. I guess this is as good a time as any. One of the main changes between The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit is the switch from mostly practical effects to almost entirely digital ones. The Lord of the Rings had a wonderful blend of practical makeup, miniatures, forced perspective, and real-life locations. This all mixed well with the then, at the time, state-of-the-art CGI. This helped ground the effects and give them a sense of realism. After 20 years, the technical achievements of these films still hold up. These movies still look beautiful to this day. A problem with a lot of modern movies is the lack of blending practical with digital effects. The Hobbit is no exception to this. It's hard to be pulled into the world when you know that the actors are just standing in front of a giant green screen. Some of the actors had a hard time with this as well.
If you tell me what to do, then I do it. And of course, what you do isn't always expressed on your face. So you say angry, and I go angry.
It lacks the tangibility of The Lord of the Rings, and it can feel hollow because of this. Elrond helps the dwarves by finding hidden letters on Thorin's map.
It would seem you were meant to come to Rivendell. Fate is with you, Thorin Oakenshield. The same moon shines upon us tonight.
How very fortunate that they weren't delayed for a few days on the road. Elrond consults Gandalf on the subject of Erebor, when we are reintroduced to Galadriel and Saruman. I am genuinely happy that Peter Jackson and Christopher Lee were able to put aside the whole cut Saruman from Return of the King debacle. Even in his advanced age, Christopher Lee was and will always be one of the greatest actors of all time. The four of them discuss the Necromancer. It has no real bearing on the plot as a whole. The dwarves seem to agree with me on this point because they leave Rivendell when no one is looking. On the road, the dwarves come across the Stone Giants. These creatures make up for an astounding half-page in the original book. However, the action scene in this film goes on for several minutes. I'm certain that they're only here to push this movie's stupid 3D gimmick. It also serves to copy this same scene from Fellowship. You could quite literally cut this scene from the movie and no one would notice. After miraculously surviving this attack, the group takes up shelter in a cavern. That all changes when the goblins kidnap the dwarves through an Indiana Jones trap. Oh wait, my bad, I'm in a PS2 cutscene. Bilbo gets separated from the group. He wakes up to find Gollum killing a goblin. This leads to Bilbo finding the One Ring, which then leads to the greatest scene in the entire Hobbit trilogy.
Blesses and splashes, precious. Bagginses. What is a Bagginses, precious?
Look, I don't know what your game is, but
Games? Oh, we love games, doesn't we, precious? Does it like games? Does it? Does it like to play? Up it goes, and it never grows.
The mountain.
Yes.
I can see you are very good at this. So, why don't we have a game of riddles? Yes, just you and me.
This scene is a tour de force. The performances from Martin Freeman and Andy Serkis are top-notch. I didn't think they could improve the impeccable Gollum effects from Lord of the Rings, but they managed it. Gollum looks absolutely stunning in this film, and this one scene elevates the entire movie. After a few riddles, Bilbo gives Gollum the slip and finds the secret behind his precious.
Has it got its nasty little pockets?
He almost kills Gollum, but pity keeps him from doing so. Meanwhile, the dwarves are rescued by Gandalf. They run through Goblin Town in a scene that drags on far too long. The escape from Goblin Town can be seen as this movie's version of Moria, an extended chase through the Misty Mountains. The only problem is that while Moria keeps itself fresh and exciting by ramping up the tension and the action, Goblin Town doesn't really do that. The only threat is goblins, which the company slice through like butter anyways. And the threat never increases. Therefore, the whole sequence becomes stale before too long. Bilbo's escape path and the dwarves' escape path perfectly show the best and worst aspects of this film. When the characters are allowed to breathe and follow the book, it can be fantastic. However, some scenes just go on far too long and bog down the pacing of this film. Thankfully, with the whole company escaping the Misty Mountains, the film should be wrapping up by now.
Where is our Hobbit? Where is our Hobbit? I'll tell you what happened. Master Baggins saw his chance and he took it. We will not be seeing our Hobbit again. He is long gone.
No, he isn't.
Why did you come back?
You don't have one. A home. It was taken from you. But I will help you take it back if I can.
However, there's still 27 minutes left. We get a surprise double climax. Again, the action goes on for far too long and just feels unnecessary. The orc Azog finally tracks down the company and forces them onto these trees. With the forest burning around them, Thorin gets up to fight him. However, he was quickly knocked to the ground and almost killed. Before the finishing blow, however, Bilbo rushes in to save him. This buys time for the Eagles, in one of the 3 things they ever do in the franchise, to swoop in and save the dwarves. They land on a rock looking towards the Lonely Mountain. Thorin apologizes to Bilbo for all the shit he's put him through. We get a short tease of Smaug before the movie finally ends. The good thing is, I feel like this movie specifically is a lot better than people remember. However, that doesn't mean it's great. There are a lot of fantastic elements and scenes in this movie. The cast is absolutely top-notch, and the adventure can be fun at times. However, this movie really likes to bog itself down in scenes that weren't relevant to the book, and action that goes on for far too long. I feel the decision to change this from 2 movies to 3 movies was a grave mistake. Chalk that up to the limited prep time on these movies or the studio's desire to make more money, I guess. However, when all is said and done, this movie's slow pacing and introductions to pointless subplots aren't too bad. That's what the next two films are for.